All right, let's hop right into it. Today, we're going to be talking about financial considerations for home ownership. Now, this is where a lot of people can make incredibly bad financial decisions that affect a significant amount of their lives because you're dealing with numbers that are pretty large when you purchase a home, right? Student loans obviously are a huge number as well. If you're going to a private school, they're probably going to be larger, but homes, there can be a lot of problems with your house if you don't know what to look for. It can cause all kinds of there's a lot of hidden fees in home ownership, and so I want to talk through that here. Some of this is stuff that we'll cover, like the math side of it, of course, is very similar. Like I said, like a lot of the content for this chapter, a lot of it is the same stuff, but it's just repackaged in different terminology. And so we're going to be using a lot of the same content that we've already covered. So it's just applied toward home ownership in this instance. So what I want to do is I want to look really quick at some of the things that you need to consider when you're purchasing a home, okay? So one thing is called the DTI, or the debt to income ratio. Really, you need to consider and think to yourself, how much is this thing going to cost me as I'm just living my life, right? If you earn a certain amount of money per month, is a significant portion of your money going to pay off debt. That could include a car loan, student loans, a potential home mortgage, right? And if you have a higher debt to income ratio, like a very high ratio, that means that you're probably not going to be in good shape to purchase a house, right? A bank might consider you to be an unwise investment because there's a high likelihood, if it's a really high number, a higher percentage, that you will default on your loan and you wouldn't be able to pay it back. That's a risk that banks aren't willing to take in many instances. So before purchasing a home, I would recommend trying to pay off as much debt as you possibly can. And that way, the only debt to your income when you do go purchase a home would be just your house. It makes the numbers look a lot better. And honestly, owning a home can be stressful. There are a lot of benefits to renting, if I'm being completely honest with you. But there are also benefits to home ownership. You just have to weigh the pros and cons. And so what I want to do is this. First off, this is the formula that we're going to use to determine debt to income ratio. We'll work on a problem here in just a little bit to illustrate how this works. But again, this is just looking at a baseline of what you can afford. There's all kinds of other stuff you have to think about. So number one, all the money that comes up front, your real estate commissions. This is anywhere from, on average, roughly 5 to 6% of the selling price of the house. Right off the bat, that money is going straight to the real estate commission. So like a buyer's agent, right? Typically, the agents are taking a commission when they are helping you find a home. Title insurance. This is again roughly 0.5% of the selling price of the house. This is to make sure that the title is actually in the proper names in case anything happens. I have encountered. I won't go into details as to who it was or why it happened, but there was a previous purchase of property in this local area connected to my church that I attend, and somebody did not have title insurance on their title for the deed to the land, and as a result, there was some mix-up as to who actually owned it and who could sell it. So it cost the church that I attend roughly $5,000 to get that fixed. So it can happen. It's something that's really important to consider. Escrow going into it is usually about $1,000, so you'll need to pay that. And then inspection fees are very necessary. You can be interested in a house and then go through the inspection phase of a home and you'll quickly realize that this is a terrible investment. When I lived in Manhattan, there was a home that my wife and I were interested in purchasing as first-time home buyers, and we had an inspection done, and there was all kinds of issues. The exterior grade on the property was kind of slanting downward into the house, which meant that anytime it rained, we would probably flood our basement. There was serious radon issues in the state of Kansas. That's a big problem. Radon is it's a radioactive. It can cause cancer if you don't have a radon mitigation system in your home. So that's a problem. There were all kinds of problems with this house. The roof needed to be replaced. It looked, walking through a house, a lot of times, like paint, pictures, good cleaning can make it look presentable, but then when you dig into the bones of a house, you can get into yourself some serious problems. So we ended up getting out of that process. We didn't end up purchasing that home. So that's the short-term stuff, right? Up front. On the long term, these are things that can really, really add up. And today, again, the time of recording, this is early October of 25. Interest rates at this point in time are hovering around 6 to 6.5%, which is substantially higher than when I purchased my existing home here in Concordia. And that makes the cost of home ownership significantly higher. Interest is a real thing right now that a lot of people are struggling with. So making sure you have a low interest rate is really crucial. Taxes on our home. I'm actually going to show you a statement here with obviously the important stuff redacted so nobody can hack me. But taxes, this is part of our escrow fees, which a home mortgage is made up of a few different things. It's your principal payments, right? That's how much is actually going toward the purchase, the home itself, how much the face value of the home is. There's your interest payment that you owe to the bank for basically giving you all that money up front to buy the home. And then you have your escrow, and your escrow is made up of your taxes, your home insurance, and your PMI, which is listed right here. So again, these things can add up long term. Taxes can be insane if you live in a really, and depending on where you live, right? Sometimes like I grew up in New York State, and property taxes in New York State are absolutely absurd compared to living here in Kansas. Home insurance, right? If you live down in Florida, which my mom and sister live in Florida, they pay an insane amount of home insurance because of hurricanes having the capacity to come through and completely wipe your home out. So that's again dependent on where you live. Private mortgage insurance, usually if you have cash and you're purchasing a home, if you're not putting a full 20% of the purchase price down on the home, you'll have to pay private mortgage insurance. It's essentially an insurance for the bank so that if you default on your loan, they can recuperate their money. That's pretty much what mortgage insurance is. And then maintenance on top of it. Maintenance is roughly 2 to 3% of the purchase price of the house annually per year. This could come in the form of keeping the grounds, right? Doing the lawn, making sure you are mulching your beds outside, all the paint, right? Fixing busted stuff, busted windows, broken doors. Normal wear and tear of things in your house. This has happened to us. We've had to replace our air conditioning. We've had to replace multiple appliances within our home. So a dishwasher, a refrigerator. We've had to replace our washer and dryer, right? All of these things are part of the cost of your house, whether you believe it or not. So having this money set aside, right? If your bank account is like, it has nothing in it and you're planning on going and buying a house, you are making a terrible decision. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. You really need to make sure that you're taking into account all of the underlying costs when it comes to purchasing a home. This is why, in a lot of cases, it is beneficial to rent. I know, like, a lot of times people might say to you, like, oh, like, I want to invest in something that I'll one day actually own rather than just paying a landlord. Okay, well, that's great, but if you don't have the capital or the finances to purchase a home and your heat goes out, you can call the landlord and they'll come over and fix it. You know, they eat the cost of that, not you as a renter. So again, that's one of those things that it depends on the situation. And if anyone is kind of contemplating this stuff, like, feel free to reach out to me personally, and I can walk you through the finances of this. Again, this is reserved for students of mine. So if you're watching this video somehow, I don't know how you got onto this video or this channel, but if you're watching this and you want to take my class and you want to figure some of this stuff out, feel free to contact me. And I'd love to walk through some of this process with you. All right. So these are really important things to consider. So what I want to do is I want to work through some of the math behind how, oh, actually, I was going to do this. Let me show you really quick. This is actually I just downloaded this today. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it is a statement. And of course, I've redacted all the important information. This is basically my bank statement or my mortgage statement. And it walks through some of the details, right? So the mortgage information and the past payment breakdown, all of this stuff. Okay. So this is how much the original loan amount was for, and this is how much I still owe on it. So, you know, we've made a little bit of a dent, but the maturity date, this is when we're going to pay it off. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's kind of small. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. So our deferred balance, the reason why we have this is during COVID, there was some money that got pushed off to the back end. So we'll have to end up coming up with that amount at the back end of the loan in 2050, 25 years from now, or before we sell our house. So that's important. The interest rate on our loan, we were fortunate. We got a low interest rate. Interest rates right now, I said, are basically double this, which you would think that, oh, an interest rate of double would mean that my price or my payment would go up by double. It actually doesn't. It goes up by even more. So it's kind of crazy how that works. But here's kind of how the breakdown is. The principal is the amount that goes specifically toward the original amount that I owed. So only $227 of the last payment I made out of the $962 went to principal. A lot of it went to interest. Okay. And as you are working through this stuff, interest is actually a pretty large component that you pay early on. The earlier you have the loan, the more interest you pay. And then at some point, usually about 15 years or so into a 30-year mortgage, about halfway through is when that flips and you'll be paying more principal than interest. But the reason why it's structured this way is the bank wants their money, right? They want the convenience fee of loaning you this amount of money, and so they want their money first. So it makes sense. Escrow, this is, again, a combination of taxes, insurance, home insurance, and PMI. I do not pay PMI. And so this is really, for me, just a combination of taxes and insurance, which adds up to about $408 a month. So it adds up. You can see the year to date. Again, this is 10 months in. So 9 months in, 10 months. I think this is 9 months officially, but you can see the breakdown. And so things add up, right? Like, just because you see an original purchase price of that much, this isn't the original purchase price. This is how much I borrowed, by the way. That this amount is just what I'm owing on my house, but I still have to do all the other stuff that comes along with owning a house. So again, it's kind of important to consider those things. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some problems. We will work on some debt to income ratios and some other things, kind of figuring out some fees and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. On this first question, I want to find the debt to income ratio. Find the debt to income ratio. For borrower with the following. So these are kind of a list of all the debts that they have, or I guess all the information. Monthly income, is going to be $4,875. The credit card bill, this is the minimum credit card bill. What they owe, $125. So this is monthly, by the way. Car lease. If you remember last time I said car leases are dumb, don't do them. This is going to be $256.78. Student loan. This is again a monthly payment, $216. And the loan payment, so this is, they're applying for mortgage payment. Of $2,031. Whoops, there's the 31 and 79 cents. Okay. All right, so as you recall, the DTI is my monthly payments. And I would, by the way, I would look at these numbers without actually calculating this and just think to yourself, is this like a smart decision or not? So let's just, off the top of our head, ignore the monthly income, okay? 125 and 256, that's 375, plus another 215, that's what, 500 and something? Little like $530, something like that. Plus that is 2,000, so basically 2,600 a month. Okay, 2,600 a month out of the 4,875. That doesn't include groceries or any of the living expenses. My guess is this is probably dumb. This is probably not a good decision, right, to purchase this house. So let's just take a look. So we've got 125. We're going to add 256.78. We're going to add 216. We're going to add 2,031.79. And then we're going to divide through by the amount of income. Okay, so let's go ahead and bust out our trusty calculator. And we'll go ahead and switch over to that. Come on. Oh, it's over here. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting my screens confused. I have 3 screens here, so I've got like one over here, and then the one I'm writing on, and I always lose my windows. So let's go ahead and figure this out. We've got on the top, I'm going to put this in brackets, and so 125, 216, 256. What am I doing? 256.78. I've got 216. Oh, there is 216 in there. There you go. 2031.79. I'm going to close that off, and then I'm going to divide through by the bottom number, which is 4875. All right. So 53.9%, basically 54%. Okay. So this is equal to 0.539, which is the same thing as 53.9%. Okay. That is a pretty large number, pretty large proportion of your monthly income going towards debt, which is probably not a wise idea. So I would probably, as a bank probably will not take this risk, if I'm being completely honest with you, just looking at the numbers. So yeah, probably not a wise idea to make a purchase here. All right, let's go ahead and jump into another problem. So in this problem, this is kind of figuring out the cost of some of these things. So I want to sell my home for $365,000. The real estate commission is 6%. The sale price, title insurance is 1.2%. The sale price, and the escrow fee is $1,000. How much do you get after fees are calculated? So typically, if anybody ever watches like anything on like HGTV where they're doing like home renovations and flipping, they kind of calculate these things like off the top to see how much money they can earn. So this is a good practice. So selling for $365,000. Okay. Commission is 6%. Title insurance is 1.2%. And escrow is $1,000. Okay. So let's go ahead and figure out what each of these is. So the commission is 6% of that. So for the commission, $365,000 times the 6%. So remember that's 0.06. That is going to work out to being, and I've already gone through the work here, so I calculated this. You can just use a calculator and do each of these individually. $21,900. The title insurance is going to be $365,000 times the 0.012, right? That's 1%, 1.2%. This is going to be $4,380. And then the escrow, this is going to be the flat 1,000. And I need to add all this up. So my total, if I add all of these up, I should get $27,280, give or take. And so my total amount that I receive would be the purchase price, or the sell price, I should say, the $365,000. $365,000 minus my $27,280. This is how much I should get. $337,720. And again, part of this is assuming that you have paid off your loan. Most people, so like usually what happens when people buy houses is they have a loan on their home, but they don't actually have the loan paid off on their home. So the way it works usually is like if I have a house, right? I have a house worth $200,000, but my loan, I still have $100,000 on my loan. I'll get the $200,000, but I have to use $100,000 of that to pay off my old loan before I can use the money to go purchase another house. Does that make sense? So it's like this is not the amount that you're actually getting if you have another loan. You have to pay off the old loan before you can get whatever the difference is. So it just creates all kinds of stuff. So we also have to figure out what the percentage of the fees is. So to figure this out, what we're going to do is we're going to take that amount right here. Well, actually, no, we're not. This is just how much we're going to get. To figure out the amount of the fees, the fee amount is going to be this $27,000 right there that we paid. So the fee percentage is going to be the $27,280 divided by however much we were selling the house for. So in this case, it's $365,000. And as a result, if you do the math, let me switch back over to my calculator here. $27,280 divided by $365,000. This will give us a percentage. So it's 0.0747. And if you look, this is the same thing as roughly 7.5%. I'll write this as approximately equal 7.5%. Okay. So that's roughly how much we're actually paying for all the included fees on top of owning a house, right? Or I guess when we get the amount for our house back. Okay. Let's do another problem. So a lender requires 0.65% for PMI on a loan. On the loan amount of $325,000. Okay. How much does this add? So again, as a reminder, PMI is mortgage insurance in case you default on the loan, so you don't pay it. And that way the bank can at least get their money back on the house. So if you don't put down enough money on the house, they will require you to have private mortgage insurance. So $325,000. By the way, this is an annual fee, so we're actually calculating an annual fee, and then I'll go ahead and parse it out by month so you can see how much that is. Whoops. 0.65%. So remember, this is a percentage, and it's already a decimal, so that means that it's going to be a pretty small number here. Okay. 0.0065. So if I go ahead and punch this thing in, I'll get 325,000 times my 0.0065. That's 2112 and 50 cents. This is annually, okay? So this is annually. And for me to determine how much this is by month, I'm just going to take the 2112.50 and divide it by the 12. And we'll go ahead and compute that. So switch over, 2112.50 divided by 12, and we end up with 176.04 cents. Okay, 176.04 per month on top of your normal payment. Okay, so that's what ends up being the cost of private mortgage insurance if you absolutely need it. So that's really all I have. Again, kind of recapping, we're going to be looking at debt to income ratio in these problems right here. That was the first one. The second one, looking at just the overall amount of fees that you're paying up front. And then lastly, a private mortgage insurance problem. Okay, there's a lot that goes into home ownership. I already mentioned I gave an offer. If you did want to talk to me about it, feel free to let me know. But you never know. Like here's something that's worth investigating. If you are paying PMI on your house and you bought your house anytime in the last 10 years and you're still paying PMI, call your bank and say, hey, I don't want to pay PMI anymore. Over the summer, I went and called our bank. I was paying PMI, but because the value of my house has increased since we purchased it, that means that technically speaking, the amount that my loan is for and how much my house is worth, there's so much more of a gap that the bank should recuperate their money no matter what. So I shouldn't have been paying PMI. So I called and I just said, hey, like, can you guys check and see if I actually have to pay PMI anymore? And they came back and said, guess what? You don't have to pay PMI anymore. That saved me like $100 a month. Like, sometimes you just got to call and ask. You never know. So my encouragement, again, look into these things. Just make sure you're prepared. You have the information. You know what your finances look like. You're in the process of saving and putting things away if you do want to purchase a house. But also make sure that you're making a wise investment, like you're making a good purchase, and not you're not jumping into a situation where it's going to end up costing you on the back end because it was unwise. So that's my encouragement to you. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Have a good one.